94 minutes on the clock. Emirates Stadium, Champions League, quarter-final, second leg, and Declan Rice is still running, not managing his body, not jogging through the final seconds, running, pressing, competing like it is the opening minute of the game. Now consider this, 24 hours before that moment, Mikel Arteta confirmed that Rice had no chance of playing. His exact words, shattered, not feeling good at all. Yet there he was, 94 minutes, everything on the line. The final whistle blew. Arsenal 0, Sporting CP 0, aggregate 1-0, Champions League semi-final booked, back-to-back seasons, a feat this club had only achieved twice in their entire European history before Mikel Arteta arrived. But before the noise inside the Emirates even settled, every conversation had already moved to Sunday, Manchester City, the Etihad, 6 points separating these two clubs at the top of the Premier League, a game that could decide the title. Rice looked straight into the camera after the final whistle and said 3 words, let's go. This is where we are tonight. This is what is at stake. Let us break it all down right now on Melissa, Arsenal analyst. The full-time result, Connor Hum, posted immediately after the final whistle. The words were simple. The job's done. Now all eyes turn to Sunday. The scoreline showed Arsenal 0, Sporting CP 0 at the Emirates Stadium on April 15th. Aggregate score 1-0 to Arsenal. Now, let me give you my analysis on this. That caption tells you everything about where Arsenal's mindset is right now. There was no explosion of celebration, no excessive emotion, just quiet, professional acknowledgement that the task was completed, and then an immediate mental shift to what comes next. That is the mentality of a team that understands what this season is really about. The Champions League matters, but the Premier League title race is breathing right down their necks, and every single person connected to this football club knows it, the XG numbers. Opta Joe shared the match statistics. The combined expected goals for the entire game was 0.93. That is the lowest combined expected goals figure of any match in the Champions League this season. Arsenal registered 0.64 expected goals. Sporting CP registered 0.29. Both sides had 15 and 8 shots respectively. Each team managed just 1 shot on target. Possession was split exactly 50-50. Here is my take on those numbers. 0.93 combined expected goals in a Champions League quarter-final second leg. That is extraordinarily low. But here is the context that matters. Arsenal came into this game protecting a 1-0 aggregate lead. They were not asked to win the game. They were asked not to lose it. When you understand that framing, those statistics tell a completely different story. Controlling the game to the point where the opponent generates just 0.29 expected goals is not a failure. That is a defensive masterclass under enormous pressure. Critics will look at Arsenal 0.64 and say they were toothless. Analysts will look at Sporting 0.29 and say Arsenal did exactly what was required. SofaScore ratings. SofaScore described the display as just enough for Arsenal. Their data showed expected goals of 0.67 to 0.23. Shots on target were 15 to 8 with 1 apiece on target. Big chances were equal at 1 each. Arsenal had 26 touches in the opposition box compared to Sporting's 19. Possession remained 50-50. The highest rated players on the night were Martin Zubimendi at 7.7, followed by Eduardo Quaresma for Sporting at 7.4. Gabriel came in at 7.2. Declan Rice was rated 7.1. My analysis here is straightforward. Zubimendi being the highest rated Arsenal player on the night speaks volumes. The defensive structure held, the midfield controlled, and the clean sheet was kept. Just enough is actually the correct description when you are playing a second leg with a 1-goal advantage. You do not need to be brilliant, you need to be reliable. Arsenal were reliable. The historic achievement, Opta Joe put the achievement into full perspective. Arsenal have now reached the UEFA Champions League semi-final in back-to-back seasons. Before this run, Arsenal had only made 2 previous European Cup or Champions League semi-finals in their entire history. Those came in 2005 to 2006 and 2008 to 2009. The word Opta Joe used was simply standards. This is where I want to pause and let that sink in. 2 semi-finals in the club's entire European history before this current run. Now they have made it in consecutive seasons. That is not luck. That is not a coincidence. That is structural and cultural progress at a football club. Whatever people say about the performance level against Sporting, nobody can take away the significance of what Mikel Arteta has built. Pep Guardiola and Manchester City Transfer News Live reported that Pep Guardiola gave his Manchester City players 2 full days off, Tuesday and Wednesday, ahead of the weekend title decider against Arsenal. The City squad came in for only a light recovery session on Monday. Meanwhile, Arsenal were playing a Champions League quarter-final on Wednesday night. And this is where the scheduling reality hits hard. Manchester City had 2 days of full rest, while Arsenal were battling through 94 minutes of high-intensity European football. The physical disparity heading into Sunday is real. City will arrive at the Etihad fresher. Arsenal will arrive having played an extra game under enormous pressure. That is the challenge. And yet Arsenal's players, as we will see, are not using it as an excuse. The referee appointment, Liquid Guna reported that Anthony Taylor has been appointed to officiate the Manchester City versus Arsenal Premier League fixture. Taylor has overseen more than 400 Premier League matches. He will be supported by Gary Beswick and Ian Hussin. Paul Tierney will serve as fourth official and John Brooks will handle VAR duty. The report also noted that Anthony Taylor is 47 years old and lives in the Greater Manchester area, within a few miles of both Manchester United and Manchester City. Now, I am going to be very measured in my analysis here because the facts speak clearly enough on their own. This is the biggest Premier League fixture of the season. It could decide who wins the title. The referee appointed lives in the Greater Manchester area and is based within miles of both local clubs. These are simply the facts as reported. Arsenal supporters will draw their own conclusions. What I will say is that the pressure on every official in that stadium on Sunday will be enormous and every decision will be magnified under the brightest spotlight in English football right now. Before we go deeper into this story, if this is the kind of detailed, structured analysis you want on the biggest Arsenal stories every single week, then hit that subscribe button right now. This channel breaks down every angle, every quote, every statistic without the noise, just the real picture. Now let us keep going. Marc Guehi warning Arsenal Muse shared a quote from Manchester City defender Marc Guehi. Guehi said, "It is about stepping up when it matters most." He said the team knows how to arrive at the right moment. He described recent trophy wins as giving the squad confidence and belief and confirmed the target is to keep winning. The tweet ended with a message to Arsenal fans to raise their game on Sunday. Here is what Guehi's words actually reveal when you analyse them properly. He is not talking about individual brilliance. He is talking about collective momentum and belief. A team that has recently won a trophy, regardless of which one, carries a psychological edge. They have proof they can win under pressure. That confidence is a real factor heading into Sunday. Arsenal need to be aware of it. Declan Rice on Manchester City. Arsenal Radar shared Declan Rice's direct message about Sunday's clash. Rice said, "Yeah, of course you have to win every game." He described Arsenal's record this year as amazing across all competitions. He then said the squad will be ready, they know what it means, and finished with the words, "Let's go." Short, sharp, definitive. That is Rice's communication style, and it works perfectly for a captain. He did not hedge, he did not qualify. He said Arsenal want to win every game, and Sunday is no different. That is leadership clarity, and coming from a man who played 94 minutes on Wednesday night while physically shattered, those words carry serious weight. Thierry Henry on the fire. AFC Stuff quoted Thierry speaking on CBS Sports. Henry said Arsenal were asked to do a job, and they did it. But he then challenged the team direct. He said he wants to see the fire at the Etihad. He said it is easy to talk and that Arsenal need to go to Manchester City and deliver. He finished by saying, "Then we will see fire. I'll even bring it." Henry's challenge is not a criticism. It is a demand born from the highest standards. He is essentially saying that Wednesday was the minimum acceptable. Sunday needs to be the maximum. As an analyst, I understand exactly what Henry is pointing at. Against Sporting, Arsenal were cautious, conservative and controlled. Against Manchester City at the Etihad in a title decider, that approach will not be enough. Henry knows it, Arteta knows it, the players know it. Henry demands a win. AFC Stuff also shared another Henry quote from the same CBS Sports broadcast. Henry said he is over the moon about the Champions League semi-final qualification, described it as well done, then immediately shifted his focus. He said he wants the team to win at Manchester City, not draw, win and make a statement. 2 words stand out, no draw. Henry is not asking for a point at the Etihad. He is asking for 3. Given the Premier League table situation where Arsenal lead by 6 points with a game in hand, a win on Sunday would put the title almost completely beyond City's reach. Henry understands the mathematics and the psychology simultaneously. A win is not just about points. It is about sending a message to everyone watching. The Premier League table and run-in. The official Premier League account posted a graphic showing what is at stake over the next 6 weeks. Arsenal sit first with 32 games played, plus 38 goal difference and 70 points. Manchester City sit second with 31 games played, plus 35 goal difference and 64 points. Arsenal's upcoming fixtures include Manchester City away in match week 33, then Newcastle at home, Fulham at home, West Ham away, Burnley at home and Crystal Palace away. Manchester City's remaining fixtures include Crystal Palace at home, then Arsenal at home in match week 33, Newcastle away, Fulham away, West Ham away, Burnley away, and Crystal Palace away in match week 38. The numbers here are stark. A 6-point gap with Arsenal holding a game in hand. If Arsenal win on Sunday, the gap becomes 9 points, with City having played the same number of games. At that stage, mathematically and psychologically, the title race is effectively over. This is why Sunday carries the weight that it does. It is not just 3 points. It could be the moment the Premier League trophy heads to North London. 124 million euros. Daily AFC reported that Arsenal have earned a record 124 million euros from their Champions League campaign in the 2025 to 2026 season. This is a number that deserves proper recognition. 124 million euros from a single Champions League campaign. That is a record for the club, and it is not just money. It is reinvestment potential, squad building capacity and commercial leverage. Every time Arsenal progress in Europe, they expand their ability to compete at the highest level. This financial reality underpins everything Arteta is building. Arteta on Atletico Madrid. AFC staff shared Arteta's reaction to the potential semi-final opponent, Atletico Madrid. Arteta said he watched Atletico's game the previous day and described their stadium as special. He said those are the moments the team wants to live together. He then shifted focus, saying tomorrow they start preparing for the weekend and they will think about the semi-final after that. Classic Arteta management: acknowledge the excitement, respect the next opponent, then immediately refocus on the immediate task. He did not linger on the romance of the Metropolitano. He filed it away and pointed the squad straight at Sunday. That is the discipline of a manager who has learned from past experience that emotional detachment in the short term leads to better results. Arteta on Bournemouth and ownership. Fabrizio Romano quoted Arteta speaking about the squad's response following the defeat against Bournemouth. Arteta said what he loved was the ownership the players took after that defeat. He said they sat down together, analysed it, said things face to face and then acted on it. He finished by saying the words now need to be turned into actions. This quote gives us a window into the internal culture at Arsenal. After losing to Bournemouth, there was no blame shifted outward, no public excuses. The players sat in a room, had honest conversations and collectively decided to respond. That is a mature dressing room. And Arteta's job now is to ensure that the same ownership and accountability is brought to Sunday's performance. Gabriel Martinelli speaks. Arsenal Radar shared a quote from Gabriel Martinelli. Martinelli said he has been working hard for moments like these. He described Arsenal as his club and his family. He said he feels really good and wants to win titles. He also spoke about the Champions League specifically, saying the competition is really nice, that the game is open, there are spaces to run into, and that he has been enjoying playing in Europe this season. Martinelli's words reflect genuine joy and motivation. He is not speaking like a player going through the motions. He is speaking like a footballer who is hungry. His specific mention of spaces in the Champions League is tactically interesting too. It suggests he feels more liberated in European football than in the tighter defensive structures he sometimes faces domestically. Arteta on being the only English club left. Fabrizio Romano also shared Arteta defending his team's achievement. Arteta said, there is a reason why we are the only English team in this competition. He acknowledged they are not perfect and need to improve, but he then said the schedule takes everything out of you and called on people to value what the players have done. This is Arteta making a factual case that cannot be argued with. Every other English club has been eliminated from the Champions League. Arsenal alone remain. And they remain while simultaneously leading the Premier League. The scrutiny is intense, the demands are relentless, but the evidence of what they have achieved is undeniable. Rice played shattered. Arsenal Buzz quoted Arteta directly about Declan Rice's physical condition going into the Sporting match. Arteta said Rice was shattered on Tuesday. He said Rice had no chance of playing and was not feeling good at all. Yet Rice played 94 minutes at the level he consistently delivers. Arteta ended the quote by saying every single player is putting everything on the line and he really values that from the team. Now let us sit with that for a moment. A player who medically had no chance of playing, who was physically shattered the day before the game, who then went out and played 94 minutes in a Champions League quarter-final. That is not just commitment, that is extraordinary. Arteta naming Rice specifically is a deliberate act of public recognition. He wants everyone to understand what these players are sacrificing. Saka injury update. AFC Newsroom reported Arteta's update on Bukayo Saka's Achilles injury. Arteta said it has been a few weeks now and Saka has not been able to train much. He said it's not just about having Saka available, but about what condition he will be in when he returns. Arteta said they want him on the pitch as quickly as possible and that the moment Saka can tolerate the load and the pain, he will be available. Arteta also described Saka as someone who gets frustrated but does everything possible to find solutions and treatments to return as fast as possible. The Saka situation is one of the most significant subplots in Arsenal's season right now. He has not played since the international break. An Achilles injury that has prevented training for several weeks is serious. Arteta's careful language saying Saka needs to tolerate the load and the pain tells us this is not a minor knock. It is a real injury being managed carefully. Whether Saka is available for Sunday or for the Champions League semi-final remains genuinely uncertain. Rice, as captain, now Arsenal reported that Arteta revealed Declan Rice was given the captaincy for the past 2 games as a decision made by the Arsenal players themselves. Rice also reiterated his readiness for Sunday, saying, "How much do you want it? I know I'll be ready and I know our players will be ready, so let's go." This is significant leadership information. The captaincy was not handed down from the manager, it was chosen by the players. When a group of professional footballers collectively decide who they want to lead them, that carries a different kind of authority. Rice did not ask for the armband. His teammates gave it to him. That tells you everything about his standing in that dressing room. 12-game unbeaten run. Connor Humm posted the full visual record of Arsenal's unbeaten run in the Champions League. The draw against Sporting extended that run to 12 matches. This is Arsenal's longest unbeaten streak in the competition since at least the 2004 to 2005 season. 12 games without defeat in the Champions League. Let that register properly. Across an entire European campaign, through group stages, knockout rounds and quarter-finals, Arsenal have not lost once. That is not luck. That is consistency, defensive organisation and a squad capable of performing repeatedly at the highest level. Rice dismisses the critics. Hand of Arsenal quoted Rice's post-match response to those criticising the performance. Rice said back-to-back semi-finals is amazing. He said they want to go one step further. He dismissed the frustration narrative by pointing out they just qualified for a semi-final. He said what the manager thinks and what the team thinks matters most. He also added context by noting that every team they face changes to a 5-man defence against Arsenal. That final point from Rice is genuinely important tactical context. When every opponent you face restructures into a defensive 5 to stop you, creating chances becomes structurally harder. Rice is not making excuses. He is providing an accurate description of the tactical reality Arsenal face in almost every game this season. It is a problem born from being respected and feared. Rice on handling the noise. Arsenal's Own shared a longer Rice quote about dealing with external scrutiny. Rice said there is noise with everything at a top club. He said there is scrutiny whether you play well or not. He encouraged the attitude of taking it with a pinch of salt and keeping moving. He described football as a roller coaster and finished by saying, "No one's going to hand you anything in this game. Let's just keep going strong." Rice speaking like a veteran, not defensive, not dismissive, just grounded and clear. He understands that criticism is part of operating at the top of the game. His emotional stability here is a real asset for the team in the final weeks of the season. Micah Richards' warning. AFC Stuff shared Micah Richards speaking on CBS. Richards said, when you look at Declan Rice after the Sporting game, you can see in his eyes that Rice himself knew it was not good enough. Richards said Rice wanted more before heading to the Etihad. And Richards warned that if Arsenal play the same way at Manchester City, they will get demolished. Richards is not wrong. The performance level against Sporting was survivable in a second leg context because the aggregate lead was being protected. The same performance level at the Etihad, chasing the game or needing to impose themselves would be entirely different. Arteta and his coaching staff know this. The warning is fair. Arteta fires back at the doubters. Haters TV shared one of Arteta's most powerful quotes of the entire post-match period. Arteta said he wished there was an Arsenal documentary filming the last 48 hours. He said if you watch that footage in July and ask people where Arsenal would finish, everyone would say the bottom 3. He then said, what are we talking about, guys? Please enjoy where we are as a club. If someone doesn't want to do it, so be it. This is Arteta at his most defiant and his most assured. He is essentially saying the scale of what Arsenal have achieved this season is being taken for granted by the people closest to the club, leading the Premier League. Only English club in the Champions League semi-final. Back-to-back semi-finals in Europe for the first time in the club's history, and people are focusing on the XG numbers from a controlled second leg. Arteta's frustration is entirely justified. Arteta's tactical review. Daily AFC shared Arteta's honest assessment of the game itself. He said it was always going to be difficult. He acknowledged there were moments in the first half where Arsenal should have scored and maintained momentum, especially in the final third. He said in the second half there are areas to improve in terms of control, dominance and finishing. But he then made a clear distinction, praising the team's behaviours, attitudes and habits off the ball as outstanding. Arteta separating technical execution from mentality and character is deliberate and important. He is not ignoring the areas that need improvement. He is acknowledging them openly, but he is also making sure the narrative does not swallow the reality that the team's attitude was exactly right. That balance, honest about weaknesses while protecting the culture, is what good management looks like. Arteta versus Henry. Now let us move to the written analysis pieces. The first one covers the public disagreement between Mikel Arteta and Thierry Henry following the Sporting result. The situation is clear. Henry, speaking as a pundit, said he did not see fire in Arsenal's players during the Sporting match. Arteta, speaking as their manager, disagreed 100%. And here is where the analysis gets interesting. Arteta's response was not vague. He pointed directly at two players to prove his point. Declan Rice, who was physically unable to play the day before and played the full 94 minutes anyway, and Piero Hincapié, who was in the same physical condition. Arteta said, every single player is putting everything on the line. That is not a defensive press conference answer. That is specific evidence. Now, Henry's position is also understandable. He wanted to see more than just a controlled professional display. He wanted Arsenal to stamp their authority, to dominate, to look like Champions League winners in the making. He said those words in the context of challenging the team to be bolder at the Etihad. The reality is both perspectives contain truth. Arteta is right that the character and commitment were genuine and proven through physical sacrifice. Henry is right that the level of performance needs to rise significantly if Arsenal are to win the Champions League. The disagreement is not really about fire, it is about expectation and timing. What the evidence suggests is that Arsenal have built a team capable of grinding through difficulty with professional composure. Whether they can also play with the aggressive ambition Henry demands on the biggest stage is the question that remains unanswered. Winners and losers. The second analysis piece identified 2 winners and 3 losers from the Sporting result. On the winners' side, Pep Guardiola is identified as a beneficiary of Arsenal's display. The reasoning is straightforward. Having watched Arsenal struggle to create clear chances against a side that had scored 22 Champions League goals this season, Guardiola would have seen enough to feel confident about Sunday. That is a legitimate assessment. Max Daumann is the other winner, with Bukayo Saka out with his Achilles injury and Noni Madueke forced off in the second half against Sporting with what appeared to be a knee injury. Daumann may now be in line for his first ever Premier League start in the biggest game of the season against Manchester City. That is an extraordinary situation for a young player and a significant concern for Arsenal's attacking depth. On the losers' side, Ben White's situation is significant. He was dropped to the bench against Sporting with Christian Mosquera, a player who is naturally a centre-back preferred in his right-back role. The evidence suggests that Arteta has lost confidence in White in recent weeks. The fact that a natural centre-back was selected ahead of an established right-back in a crucial European knockout match tells its own story. A summer sale is described as a real possibility. Victor Gyökeres is identified as a loser, specifically because of the narrative around him. He had every reason to want to damage his former club. The circumstances of his departure from Sporting were difficult, and this was meant to be his opportunity. Instead, he barely threatened Arsenal's goal over 2 legs. That is a significant personal disappointment for the Swedish striker. And then there is Noni Madueke. He was one of Arsenal's more lively players before being forced off with a knee injury. He appeared to be in significant pain. Losing him ahead of the Manchester City game and potentially the Champions League semi-final is a real blow. He was exactly the kind of direct combative forward Arsenal need going into Sunday. Let me bring all of this together now. Arsenal qualified for the Champions League semi-final with a professional, controlled and at times uninspiring performance. They kept a clean sheet, they protected their aggregate lead, they got the job done, and in doing so they extended their unbeaten Champions League run to 12 matches. The performance level will need to rise. Thierry Henry said it, Micah Richards said it, Arteta himself acknowledged it. There are areas technically and tactically that need to be sharper, but the facts also show a team carrying significant injury problems, a brutal fixture schedule, a captain who played 94 minutes while physically unable to train the day before, and a manager who is navigating all of it while keeping his squad at the top of 2 major competitions simultaneously. Sunday at the Etihad is the defining moment of Arsenal's season. 6 points ahead of Manchester City, a game in hand. The Premier League title is within reach. A win would make it almost certain. The squad knows it. Declan Rice said so clearly. Arteta has prepared them. The captain was chosen by his teammates. The belief in that dressing room is not performative, it is earned. The situation now is simple. Arsenal go to Manchester City needing to prove that the Champions League is not the ceiling of their ambition this season, that the Premier League title, which has not been at the Emirates in over 20 years, is coming home. That is the story, that is the stakes. And that is why Sunday matters more than almost any game this club has played in a generation. Thank you for watching. Melissa, Arsenal analyst. If you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe and stay with us for full coverage of Sunday's title decider and everything that follows. We will see you there.